placement is
Thank you
a very
very
common
much.
issue.
Thank you very much, Marvin. That's a great presentation. Very difficult complication that can happen, and obviously life-threatening when it does. I have a couple of questions for you, and then certainly would like to hear from the panel as well. How often, are you thinking about simply using a Lotus valve, which we know can be fully retrievable, and you can assess the coronaries before final release? Because a lot of the coronary obstruction risk has to do with not knowing what the anatomy is going to do once the valve is released. Are you doing Lotus instead of Evolutes or Sapiens for that?
That's a great question. The Lotus valve, in theory, has a great opportunity. It would be a great opportunity to understand whether or not you have coronary obstruction, just taking it back. In practicality, when we've had some of these cases, like it was very stenotic, and a lot of these things are very time dependent. Like you don't have a lot of time to figure that out. I find that's one of the challenges of using a Lotus valve, is being decisive and making sure that you make a quick decision, and if you want to take it back, take it out. But then you have to deal with the repercussions of, like, if you have AI or you have some other issues that made the procedure challenging. So honestly, I didn't think it added that much more when we tried it in our experience, but it's a small experience.
That's great. And then another quick question. Obviously, pre-stenting or having the wire across, pre-wiring the coronaries would be really a preferred way of helping to protect the coronaries. You showed an example of Sapien. How about core valve? Is that a useful strategy at all?
Yeah, I mean, there was an Italian registry where they did Chimney stenting, and it showed that it was efficacious. So I think for both Evolutes and for Sapiens, that's a preferred strategy. And the bottom line is, based on the data we've seen, you're just best off going with a stent rather than provisional, like, wire, and then just in case. I know some people have used guidezillas or guide liners to kind of save their spot, assess, and then put a stent in. I guess that's a reasonable strategy, but there's always this uncertainty because that's not native anatomy, and even a guide wire can prop open a leaflet and make it look like you're not obstructing. I think I showed an example where we thought we were safe. We ended up going into shock, quickly putting an impellant and wiring and saving the day. But it's a harrowing experience, and even if you rescue, there's still a reasonable chance of morbidity and mortality. So honestly, the safest thing is just, if you're going to protect, just do it up front.
Hey, Marvin, quick question about late coronary obstruction. We've had a few cases of probably maybe a week or 2 weeks out, patients represented, and those often can be a little bit more challenging. Any sort of strategies or guidance for those, other than just do what you can?
Yeah, I mean, were they in self-expanding valves? Because I think there was in that series that showed the self-expanding, they were like a little bit more delayed closure than maybe for the balloon expandable valve. But I think it goes back to, if you think you're at risk, then you're just going to have to protect. And sometimes, even though we think we know, we've assessed all the risk factors, we think you're safe, when you do get surprised, you can see that coronary heights didn't always predict obstruction, that VTCs didn't always predict obstruction, that there are some outliers out there. But if, when in doubt, protect.
What would you say is a VTC that you'd always be comfortable with? Is there a number that you would say that, well, if it's always above X, that you're going to be pretty safe?
I guess conservatively 8. I think 6 is probably okay for the most part, unless you have a very bulky calcified leaflet. Obviously, everyone's called the threshold of 4 millimeters is the high risk zone. So the intermediate risk is like somewhere between 4 and 6, 4 and 7. So usually 6 or 7, usually I feel fine. If the leaflet tip is very bulky and calcified, then I'm still concerned.